order to help all of us achieve a better Ghana.
That was Ghanaian President John Atta Mills from his inauguration early this year, our special guest for today's show. Hello, welcome to Straight Talk Africa, coming to you live from Washington, D.C. and Ghana's capital city of Accra. I'm Vincent McCory in Studio 51, here for Shaka Ssali, who joins us in a moment from Osu Castle in Accra. Today, we are pleased to bring you a one-on-one interview with the President of the Republic of Ghana ahead of President Obama's trip to his West African nation. Like his recent predecessors, U.S. President Obama is coming to Africa this week. Mr. Obama's trip to Ghana highlights the critical role that sound governance and civil society play in promoting lasting development in Africa. My colleague, Ndimiake has more.
Ghana is now regarded as a model of African democracy, and analysts say Mr. Obama's reason for visiting there, rather than Kenya, Nigeria or some other African country, is obvious. Howard University professor Suleiman Yang.
The reality is all these African countries that are eligible cities to be visited have certain inhibitions that would make it difficult if the president wants to be effective.
In 1957, Ghana became the first African country to gain independence from Britain. But it endured years of political upheaval before democracy finally took hold. A coup toppled the first president, Pan-Africanist Kwame Nkrumah, in 1966, and before Jerry Rawlings won presidential elections in 1992 and 1996, he led two coups himself. Again, Professor Yang on Mr. Obama's visit.
He's going to Ghana when Ghana has gone through the difficult transition which some of the African countries are still grappling with. You move from dictatorship or autocracy to multi-party system of democracy.
We thank God that we have now come to the end of the road.
In January, former Vice President John Atta Mills succeeded the party of two-term President John Kufuor, defeating incumbent New Patriotic Party candidate Nana Akufo-Addo in a runoff election. It was Mr. Atta Mills' third attempt at the presidency and returned Mr. Rawlings' National Democratic Congress Party to power. Besides its political stability, Ghana is also credited for its vibrant economy. It is one of Africa's biggest producers of cocoa and gold. U.S. President Bill Clinton visited during Mr. Rawlings' tenure and President George W. Bush during Mr. Kufuor's time in office. Ghana's relations with the U.S. dates back years. Richard Nixon attended independence celebrations in 1957 as vice president, and Mr. Nkrumah visited Washington several times. But Nyang says Mr. Obama's visit carries a different meaning, with historical connections to black activists Marcus Garvey and W.E.B. Du Bois.
When he goes there, he will be responding to a rhetorical question from Du Bois, who led the Black Civil Rights Movement here, but was so dissatisfied with the state of affairs in America that he decided to go to Ghana and became a citizen of Ghana. So now Obama going there is saying that whatever dream you had before, America has changed. They now have a black president. Only Obama can make that history.
Some warn against too much expectation from Mr. Obama's trip. John Prendergast is co-director of the American human rights group, The Enough Project.
A visit is a symbol, nothing more. So we are going to be looking much more at the actions that the administration takes in the context of the visit, rather than just some speech that he'll make.
But for now, Ghanaians are embracing their moment, awaiting President Obama's arrival and his meeting with President Atta Mills on Friday. Mr. Obama addresses the nation and all of Africa Saturday before returning home. Ndimiake Mwakalialie, VOA News.
Thanks, Ndimiake, for that report. Now let's go to the Ghanaian capital of Accra, where Shaka Ssali is live at the president's residence of Osu Castle with his distinguished guest. Shaka?
Well, Vincent, thank you so much for tossing it to be here in Accra, the capital, of course, of Ghana. And we are seated here with President John Atta Mills, at his offices at the Osu Castle, which is, of course, the seat of Ghana's political power. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for joining us on this special edition of Straight Talk Africa.
Well, thank you, Shaka, for this opportunity.
I have to say, frankly, that I'm profoundly honored and exceedingly humbled to have had the opportunity to host you on this special edition.
Well, let me say that the pleasure is also mine. Whenever one gets an opportunity to interact with people like you, to answer questions, I believe one of us is offered an opportunity that one should cherish.
Thank you indeed. And of course, I recall that the last time you appeared on the Straight Talk Africa is several years ago. You were then, of course, a member of the opposition. And today, you are wearing a different hat. How does it feel, actually, to be president for those millions of people, billions of people that have never actually had the opportunity to be presidents of their country?
Well, it shows you that time changes. Incidentally, this office was my office when I was vice president in the President Rawlings government. And as fate would have it, it is now my office as president. Let me say that I've had some experience in this. And of course, the experience that you gather as vice president is quite different from what you experience when you are president, but at least the foundation helps. So let's say that it's very humbling to find oneself as president. Very often you ask yourself, why me? Have I taken the right decision? What can I do for the people? So I think that every time, what comes to the fore is a responsibility that has been thrust on you.
You were very patient. You persisted. You tried for the top job. You finally landed it. Are you surprised by anything that you have interacted with so far?
Not really, but I see that Ghanaians, have very high expectations, and I believe that justifiably so. And every now and then, I realize that there's the need for me to deliver on the promises. And I think also that Ghanaians cannot be taken for granted anymore. Things have changed. There's a new wind blowing, and I believe that we have to pay heed to this. Otherwise, we are going to be swept off our feet.
You actually ran on a theme for change. And you're the guest that you expect to be hosting on Friday. Barack Hussein Obama also ran on the theme for change. As you look back, do you sometimes feel that you were realistic? Because there are people who will tell you that when candidates are running for president, they basically run their campaigns in what is called poetry. They basically promise heaven and earth. But actually when they win and they start governing, they start doing so in what is called prose. Is that what you have discovered so far, or are they simply really talking?
Not at all, but let me say that President Obama and I did not compare notes before we embarked on our different campaigns. We have been in government before. We were in government from 1993 to 2001. So we have some experience behind us. When we ask for a change, we are only articulating the concerns and the wishes of the people. And we have promised the people that we want to build a better Ghana. There is no one who will deny that not everything is perfect in our country. We want an improvement in our daily lives. We believe that there are certain things that we should do differently. And if you do things differently, then obviously you are moving in a different direction. You are changing things. We want to change things for the better. And therefore, if we campaign on the platform of change, it was with this understanding.
Talking about Ghanaian expectations, one of those expectations I have recently found out is that they would like to have unfettered access to President Barack Obama when he lands in Accra Friday. Is it going to be possible?
But let me say that who in Africa doesn't want an opportunity to meet President Obama? I'm sure there are people who are coming in from our neighboring countries. Some, I believe, from as far as even South Africa. Everybody wants to see him because he's a hero. We regard his coming as homecoming. I wish that all Ghanaians would have the opportunity to meet President Obama. But if wishes were horses, beggars would ride. The circumstances or the reality on the ground is such that it will not be possible for everybody to see President Obama. But given the constraints, we'll make sure that we do what is possible. So as many people as possible will be able to see President Obama, either in person or on the screens, giant screens that we are going to provide at vantage points. I want to apologize to Ghanaians. If you are unable to see him, let's pray that he comes a second time and he spends more time with us. Unfortunately also, we are in the rainy season. We had wished that as we had done when President Clinton visited us, we could have had the meeting at the Independence Square. But you cannot predict the weather. So we've done what we think is the best in the circumstances. We have taken what we would call a calculated risk. But let's pray for an early and speedy return of our brother.
You know, there are some people who have been asking the $1 billion question, why Ghana? Why would President Barack Obama, a man whose father came from the Republic of Kenya in Kogero Nyanza province, why would he choose to come to Ghana in West Africa?
Luckily for us, Shaka, President Obama has given an indication of why he's coming to Ghana. I believe the first reason is a peaceful transition that we recorded in Ghana. Mind you, this is the second time in our history that one civilian government has handed over peacefully to another. And I believe that this is something that he wants to commend. The second one also is our democratic credentials. I believe that this is something that he admires. And he wants to seize the opportunity to send out positive signals, especially to our brothers and sisters in Africa, that this is the way to go. I believe that there is another reason which he may not have articulated. This is homecoming for him. He's an African, and every country in Africa is the same. So if he decided to come to Ghana, well, it is because he also wants to touch base with his kith and kin on the African continent.
Your country, of course, has the distinction of having been the first colony or first country to undergo a sort of decolonization, because back in 1957, it was Ghana which was the first country to regain its political independence from the British in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, we're talking about the issue of democracy and the issue of passing, going through peaceful transitions of political power. You really don't have, I think, a monopoly over that, because you do have another country in West Africa. You do have Benin, for example. You had Benin where you had Matthew Kareku, who lost an election when he was an incumbent, and then he was replaced by President Sogolo. And then Sogolo lost an election, Matthew Kareku came back, and then afterwards Matthew Kareku again left office, and it was taken by Yaya Bono, I think. Do you really think that you have a monopoly over that?
Well, Shaka, clearly we don't have monopoly. But all I can say is that we are in very good company. We also commend Beninois friends